So another podcast, Fusion Sports Performance and Physical Therapy,
Episode 2.
episode 2. Zach, Darnell, Paul.
Yeah. Didn't introduce ourselves.
No, we didn't. We just went after. I mean, even just to recap what we talked about last time with velocity-based training, the different styles of training, the different speeds, and progressive overload, use of 1 rep max, dumbest thing ever, but we have to use it. So anyway, we should probably expand upon some of the velocity-based, I'm going to guess you're going to call them classes, or you're going to call it variables on like how far you're going to be using like the speeds. So 0.5 to 0.75 and things like that, just to give you a reference of what is velocity, how it correlates, what does it do, why did we choose it, why do we think it's superior, truly superior over progressive overload, and the testing that we do to be able to come up with our form of how to add to programs, or even just how to create our programs individually based for each athlete. So unless you guys had other things you want to discuss within that, outside of that, yeah, we can do what we want.
I mean, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Which one? There was a couple things.
Well, why we use velocity based, and I guess we can just start there. Well, what is it?
What is it?
It's another one. We went into a lot, I guess, further, I think.
Well, velocity is the use of obviously speed. Instead of just telling somebody to go, just move faster, go up, you can use speed in concentric, eccentric, meaning that you could use, let's just say bench press, because I'm going to do it. You could say, I want you to move up and down within a second. That's one way to tell somebody how to do stuff. But whenever we're lifting, most programs are going to be based off a 1 rep max, which then is based off percentage, which negates or kind of just totally forgets about that the nervous system runs the muscular system. And if you're moving something that's quite heavy, that's going to be moving it quite slow. Therefore, you're teaching your nervous system to move slow. So if we ever wonder why, after somebody puts on 20, 30 pounds of muscle in a traditional strength training program, and then all of a sudden goes out on the field, why do they have hamstring strains? Why do they have hip flexor strains? Why do they have calf strains? Well, it's because you didn't prepare the body for what it was going to do. You got them stronger. That's great. But that's just one aspect of fitness or one aspect of an athlete. So in doing this, we have to kind of look at all the bad points or all the points that are not helped by the 1 rep maps. And one of them is truly just the movement, to be able to, in some people's minds, to be able to get a soreness, which doesn't really help us that much. Not when we have only a few weeks to get people ready. We lose a day to soreness. We just lost several. If it is just from pain, or just from poor movement, or just from soreness, you can lose up to 2 days. So I'm not sure why I would want to lose 2 days just so a coach or somebody can tell me that I worked you hard. I don't really want to get people, I don't want to work them out to get them tired. So I don't know. That was a lot of stuff. Sorry, guys. What do you guys want to think? What do you think?
I actually think that ties perfectly into like the auto regulation aspect of it too.
What's auto regulation?
What is your nervous system saying that you're ready for? If you walk in one day and you have 90% to hit on the board, well, that's 90% of your 1RM. That's what you have to do. Does not matter what else is going on. You're either going to get it or you're going to fail it. I mean, you're either going to get it or you're going to fail it.
And then what does that do psychologically? If you fail that lift, what do you think that does to a adolescent? What do you think that does to somebody who's been training months? All of a sudden, I've been working all this time and I can't lift that. Yeah. And it could just be a bad day, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Could be that you didn't take it.
You think you failed. You think you're not working hard enough. You may think your program isn't working. It might not be.
True story.
But, if we use VBT with that, we can set a speed that is closer to your absolute strength. And we're really looking to see how strong you are. And then with that, it's going to be where you are for that day. It might be less, but you hit your speeds, which means you were working the system that we needed to be working that day, or you're working the strength quality that we needed to be working that day.
What if you just feel like shit? What if you just feel like crap that day? You come in, girlfriend just kind of just beat up on you, he bullied you, That's just the way they are. But, when you're just not having a good day and you're supposed to come in, you're supposed to lift 0.85 to 0.95. What does that mean? So if I am not mentally ready, if I am just, my mind is somewhere else, I have to go here, I have to get this done, and you are supposed to lift, let's just say, if you're going in a percentage and you said 90% and you don't hit that lift, you're going to have psychological barrier, could. But if you have a velocity to lift, what is the difference? And if you're supposed to, again, 0.85 to 0.95, what is that athlete? What are they doing different? What's the difference? Because are they lifting a percentage of a weight for that speed? Or are they lifting the max weight that they can lift for that speed, for that amount of reps, for that amount of volume?
And
There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of stuff we go over, not just, all right, 3 sets of 10. Sorry, man, that's only 30 reps. We have so much volume and things that we have to take in. Sorry, I digress. Go ahead.
One, going back to the first part of that question, they're going to lift it. You're going to hit your 0.8 to 0.9. It may not be the weight that you lifted the last time you did it, but it could have been a very different day, but you hit your numbers. You didn't fail anything. The numbers just look different, but we're focused on the speed that you hit it, and you're going to hit that speed.
And that's a max for the day, right? So you are hitting a max almost every time you come in for the speed.
Right.
It's not a max effort lift like a lot of you guys would kind of understand. It is a max for that speed. Now, just for reference, if we are lifting something heavy again, we are going to be moving slower, 0.5 to 0.65. And then if we're moving something fast, throwing a baseball up to 35 meters per second. But anyway, if we're moving like a snatch or a clean, we've got to move over 1.3 to 1.5 meters per second to be able to do the lift. So if you don't have the strength that day, again, you were bullied or you didn't sleep well or blah, whatever it is, or you're just a human being and sometimes your day is it's just not the way you wanted it to be. You may not be psychologically or even physically ready because your mind is somewhere else. Those lifts are still going to get done. You don't lose that day just because you're mentally somewhere else. So that's where the velocity is the biggest. Anything else you want to add to that?
Piece of the velocity too is that it's auto like feedback to you after each rep. So when you have when you have like an iPad or a box that's reporting back the number to you after the lift, the reps complete, and you see like, oh, you're a little bit off that speed. It kind of gives you like motivation to, okay, I need to get it. I want to get more. And you can try and move your body, move the bar faster to achieve that speed. Because ultimately you're trying to hit a max, like he said, for that speed for the day. So if you're hovering right around it and you're trying really hard to stay in that speed and you're in there, we'll keep adding weight until obviously you don't want it to fall out of the speed. But if you can keep the weight in there, then keep going.
What happens if it falls out of the speed? What's that mean?
And it's just too heavy to achieve for that speed. And
So
it's just
therefore,
not
you're
the goal
not
of the
ready.
day.
Is you just not ready for that speed? Could that be it? You're just not ready for that weight at that speed. So therefore, you're not either more strong, you're not powerful enough, there's not enough endurance.
Or you could be breaking down somewhere. If we have accommodating resistance on the bar, like, certain band tension and your triceps are what's limiting you in the bench press, you might fail at the top because of that band tension. So even though the total weight might be the same because it's 25 pounds on the bar and 60 pounds added with the band tension at the top, but you can do that overall weight and just bar weight in a different day at the same speed, just because the accommodating resistance, that'll change.
Well, we just started a whole new episode.
I think you did. Because the chain and the band is,
Maybe we'll go back.
yeah, we may have to go back to that. Because
Yeah.
that adds a lot to the velocity. That adds a lot to training because bar weight alone is only so much. It only does so much. It doesn't matter how many different ways you can put a weight on a bar. It only does so much and then you are limited. So yeah, it's, I had something that I wanted to expand on and now I can't remember it, but. So
Being like,
Well-
like the feedback that it gives you.
yeah, the feedback. First, how do we test it? What do we use velocity? How do we show the athlete that they've achieved speed or how do we show them the speed?
Right now, we're using overt velocity sensors or boxes that can report the speed on the box itself, but we can connect it to an iPad and that can show us, we can input like the zone that we want the athlete to hit. And we can also input like a velocity drop. So instead of hitting a desired rep range, we can kind of pick a velocity, like a percentage based off their best rep or their last rep. And if it drops below that percentage, we know, okay, let's stop, because we're either trying to like limit fatigue or stop injury.
Failure? Like, why didn't you say limit fatigue? Do you want to go to failure? Do you feel failure in the years you've been working as a strength coach and seeing the different facets of people? What do you think happens at that time?
It's just more of a risk for injury.
Because their timing matter. In season, out season.
Right. So, that's going to create soreness too, going to failure.
One, that's what else happens when you're lifting too much or doing too much. Form changes.
Yeah.
How much of form and technique is relevant within velocity based compared to progressive overload?
Well,
What is your different? What's the difference?
in progressive overload, if your sheet says the 90%, if it's not your day, you're going to try and cheat it just to check the box of that weight being lifted for the day. Compared to velocity-based training, we can really focus on form, technique, and choosing the correct weight for that speed, because we're hitting like the stimulus that we want for the day. This way we don't have to jeopardize, creating bad habits, possibly getting injured, being more sore. And that'll just take away time from the training. Yeah.
One question for it. Change the velocity that you can hit as much as the weight part. So velocity can also help us find energy leaks. So if you're moving a certain way, if there is something going on in your bench press or squat, whatever lift you're trying to accomplish, you may be moving a certain way that you're not getting everything that.
What's an example?
Let's say shooting your hips up.
I got to know they're going to know stripper
That-
squat. They're going to know that more than anything, more than just
Yeah, that's
we talk to shoot the hips because we can't say stripper, we get in trouble. But you guys can talk about it. But like, go ahead, sorry. So stripper deadlift, or stripper squat. Meaning, what happens if they have somebody say, you're saying that their hips push early? What does that mean?
That means you are getting your power from a different place that's most likely not quite as strong as your legs. So if you're using your hips, using your glutes, using that lower body to drive off the floor to get everything up, you're creating as much power as you can. And in our context, that's what we're trying to strengthen. Like, we're using these movements as a tool to get you stronger. It's not about just move the weight. Okay. You can work your way around that to get the weight up. You can cheat it a little bit when the sport is to move the weight, but we are trying to use it as a tool to get somebody stronger in very specific ways. So with that, if you do move in a certain way, you could be using your back much strength from there. And
So
that
separates
will
into
show,
multiple motions instead of one movement.
which the meter will pick up those extra movements and bring your speed down as well.
So we are totally bashing the 1 rep max. But in bashing the 1 rep max, that is the one thing that we have before, like, I'm going to say before, ancient Romans, the only thing that we had, and right now we have just 1 rep max, right? So that was a way of testing. You'd go in, be like, all right, we're gonna warm up and we're gonna do a 1 rep max, and then base the whole 16 to 24 weeks off of our 1 rep max, multiple lifts, right? But that breaks down at a certain point, again, because if you're not feeling well, boom, you're not going to do well on that 1 rep max. And then you are going to have lighter weights than you should have had, correct? So you're not going to be getting as strong and as fast. Oh, that's not going to be good. So in that, we've had to come up with or find tools to be able to test and give us objective findings instead of just saying, good lift, right? That is only you're going to be doing that within powerlifting, where it's either a good lift or not a good lift. Here in this realm, when we're trying to build somebody's endurance, power, strength, proprioception, where they need to be in space, how to handle different ranges of motion, how to handle being strong in all ranges. If you don't have things to test all of that, and you are just truly testing 1 rep max, you are really not giving that athlete what they need. You are truly, it is an easy way. It is quick, and you can do multiple people quick, fast. And that's the way it's been done for years. But we can change that. So how do we do it, guys? How do we do it? What do we do?
You test differently.
How do we test them? How do we test them? Just to test them.
Well, besides just every time they come in the gym, if they're squatting with the same speed, with the same like bar configuration that we make, and the weight goes up, oh, we did something right. One way. That's part of the
So basic, that's the, yeah. Audit, right? We audit ourselves on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Instead of every 4 to 6 weeks when you guys are testing your 1 rep max. All right, testing day. How many kids don't actually show up? But there's got to be there's a smarter way. And if you don't have the apparatus, you're going to have to figure out smarter ways. I'm sorry, it's just a 1 rep max. When we did not have the apparatus, how did we do it?
Yeah, reps of 3.
Reps of 3, reps of 5, and that would be our max. And then we would set different things off of that, depending on their sport. And we've come a long way from there. Now we have counter movement jump, we have pogo, so single leg hopping. We have which is your contact time to your flank time, which gives us a ton of information. That's another thing. So the information that we get from this is not just max numbers, right? We, instead of saying, okay, let's just take what you guys are normally testing out there. Probably if most of you do it, bench press, squat, deadlift, and maybe a clean. I'm very surprised if somebody does shoulder press in some sort of way, but I lost my train of thought. If you are testing those 3 or those 4 tests, how do you correlate different things in that, right? So in other words, if I have a good clean at 135, but a bad clean at 155, I don't get it up or I can't stand that up, right? The only thing that I can really get out of that is, okay, I was able to deadlift that. I was able to catch that, but I was not able to front squat that. Okay, there's my correlation. I need to bring up my front squat. Cool. What else do you get out of that? Not much, because there was no time involved. You didn't see how fast they moved. All you did was just, can that be a good lift? So with what we have, it is a ton of numbers that comes up. And it is not just the max stuff we're looking for, because you don't do that every time. Right? Not every time you are at max effort. And if you were, your endurance would be pretty poor, right? You wouldn't be able to last long. That's in lifting. You could say, well, linemen are always hitting 100%. But if they were hitting 100%, we would have about 7 or 8 phases of linemen coming in and out, kind of like what hockey does and like what lacrosse does, because the efforts are so high. You only have 30 to 40 seconds, sometimes a minute and 10. Sometimes it can get up to 2 minutes of high effort, but for that longer duration of time you're doing it, you need longer time to rest. Anyway, coming back. Involved, we find more of the correlations between when you land and how you land, how long you're on the ground, how long it takes you to go up, right? All that stuff gives us information. Contact time, flight time, how stiff you were when you were landing. That all gets put into an AI. And then we find out where you lack, where you're getting your leakages of energy, where we need to improve. Let's just say your landing speed is very high. Therefore, we know we need to decrease stiffness, increase the ability to handle the eccentric motion. Instead of just, we can look at somebody and say, all right, the knees are turning in. What happens when that knee doesn't turn in anymore? Do you think that they're actually ready? And a lot of the times we get fooled because the stiffness, the speed at which they stop is not long enough to be able to give that tissue enough time to decelerate and then accelerate again. So it ends up being a very stiff movement, and we see that in stiffness. That also comes back to when we talk velocity-based, we have a certain amount of watts that we would like people to get to. That is done through our the velocity-based system. We can see at 100 pounds, if I push that up, if I'm landing with 2,000 newtons of force, and I'm pulling a dumbbell or a bar at 100 pounds, therefore I'm trying to get the load that I would get when I'm landing. So I'm trying to explode up as fast as I can. That gets put into a power number, and therefore we could take that power number and truly integrate it into the amount of weight that you lift. and the speeds that you go to get you ready for your sport. Sorry, guys. All right, go ahead. You guys think something. So what do you guys think about that? What are you going
I
to
get, oh, maybe instead of getting too deep into vol, like what
the speed?
you can get into like the different zones of speed.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start with absolute strength and kind of work our way up.
Yeah, go ahead. I've been crushing. Strength. Yeah. So what is absolute strength?
That's when you're going to see,
Do you want to show them the speeds on the thing? What do you want to put up on the
like from
So there's like a rudimentary or very basic rubric that is used to define speeds. One thing that you have to be really cognizant of is that it is not delineated as far as this is a pure cutoff point. So it's not a pure cutoff point. It is a moving amoeba. Like sometimes absolute strength for some people, maybe down to 0.3. Some people may be up to 0.55. Everyone's a little bit different. You're just going to have to learn your athlete and figure it out. So,
let's try this.
wow. Oh, now you got it. All right. I'm going to use my back scratcher. So here we have a lot. Oh, that's too big. So, oh my God. So absolute strength.
See that? Kind of not really.
I need to be able to see the treat. I can see them. They're very intrigued. So we are here with absolute strength. As you can see, it's up to 100%. There is supersaturation of 110, 115%. That's another one. You're going to be going from 80% to 100%. That is absolute strength. That is anywhere from, like I said, 0.3 to 0.6, 0.65. Why don't you take this? Then Zach is coming in.
So now we're on to accelerated strength, right?
What's that?
So this is going to be like 0.5 to 0.75 meters a second. And this is where we'll generally start putting like your reps for strength building.
Ooh, so this is a rep range for strength.
Normally like 6 to 10 reps on the high end, but generally we're trying to start volume wise of like 24 reps per set or no, per exercise.
Is there hypertrophy in this? Is there muscle getting bigger in these speeds?
Rep range, yes. So when you can kind of hit a little bit of both, like if you're at towards like 8 or 10, you'll be seeing like hypertrophy and strength. 6, not so much in terms of hypertrophy.
Now remember, these are max lifts for these speeds. It's not like, all right, I have 2 left in the tank. All right, this was an RPE of 7. No, these are 100%. These are 100% for those speeds. So like just relative terms, if your max squat is 200 pounds and we're trying to move something for the ease of it, 0.5 meters per second, that might be only 95 pounds. Crazy. But try to move 95. Well, no, sorry. Yeah, 95 pounds at 100%. If you are moving at 0.5 at 95 pounds and you are trying to hoof that and push that, that is high energy. So the demands on the musculature has been shown to be higher than it is with a 1 rep max testing as well as 1 rep max programs.
In sport, like in real life, like this correlation would be more towards
Stuff.
but yeah, like losing my train of thought. Sorry, like losing like your first step, using your first step quickness, your starting speed. So like a lineman, like off the ball, trying to move another guy.
What about slowing down to a stop to speed back up? Is that another accelerative?
Yes,
because you are having to overcome inertia, right? You're having to overcome a force, which is your body weight against gravity and then vector pulls. So that is anything you're doing where you're stopping and then starting again, or you're starting off. And then what? So how do we do what rep range do we hit for accelerative strength? Do we have a set rep range where what we hit?
it really depends what the overall goal is. If we're trying to go for like strength, like I said, like 6 to 10 on the high end, or if we're trying to use that for power, like to build first step quickness, then we'll start to see like the sets of reps of 4, like 3 to 6 at the high end.
Remember, 100% lift for that speed. That honestly, I'm making that a constant thing because I don't think people understand. You are lifting 100% for that speed. You are not just lifting once. So if your reps are 10 to 12 to 14, you got to keep up with that. So now you understand how this becomes a little bit more advantageous in building endurance, building muscular endurance, resilience, injury prevention. You are moving at the intensity as what you would be playing.
Moving on. Strength
I be on
speed.
there and don't be on the floor, so I shut up.
Darnell wants to go. You can explain this one, Darnell.
After?
Yeah.
Switch it out and get was here.
Could take the point.
Yeah, I know he's out. You go there.
Can stay over the middle. That's cool.
I think we might need to start a count. How many have we tripped over? All right. So since we go strength speed and to work our way up, I'm sure you can start to see the trend now. Everything just starts to become moving a lighter load at a faster speed. So once we get to strength speed, it's starting to get a lot more moderate, and the focus stays on that faster speed. Anybody have a good comparison for strength speed you can think of? It's the one I always blank on.
Middle portion.
Like a sport.
So it's going to be a little bit the second step, third step, ability to slow down, but it's not as much as overcoming inertia. So it's not as, let's just make it easy, heavy as it would be for accelerative. So it's the ability to overcome inertia first for the accelerative, and then strength speed is going to be a little bit more that second step. It could be your first step as you get to that 0.73 to that 0.76, but that is just, again, an intermediary between your absolute and your strength speed.
Now we got speed strength. Now we're getting explosive, lighter loads, or specific movements that are very specific to power. If you're moving a clean below 1, you're probably not gonna complete that lift. Maybe your front squat portion of it, but as far as your pull, that's not gonna quite get you there. And then your starting strength, that is just absolute all out power, high effort, very short movement, vertical jump.
Light 4.
That even lightweight, probably even go down just a body weight or something even lighter than that, like med ball throw.
Now, on top, you'll see the 1 RM and 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to the 100. That has to be put in there because it is very tough at the beginning to understand the weights that you will be using for those speeds. And most of the time, it is hard for an athlete that has been indoctrinated into that type of thinking because, again, it's easier. So if you don't have the percentages, people will really not understand. And again, those percentages are not absolutes. They are they are just placed there just to give a little bit of reference. There are times where you're doing a strength speed for you at 40% of your 1 rep max. So you've got to take these things as an educational standpoint as far as percentage. You can try to argue and say that's exactly what it is, and 1 rep max does it, but the literature has been showing other ways. So I know it's hard for some brains to kind of figure out, especially if it's just something you've been doing forever, but realize times have changed and we have evolved into not just being barbarians and just saying, 10 of these, 3 of these, and let's just, and then you'll be fine. I'm sorry, there's so much more involved in a strength program beside just lift this or just squat, deadlift, clean. And I would love to just destroy the clean, but that's me.
These like speed zones that we're talking about right now are measured in mean. So the whole distance in the concentric portion of it, not peak, which is just like your fastest moment. Well, unless you're concerned about the whole concentric, so the way up, speed of the lift, when the peak's just going to capture like your highest moment. So sometimes in the Olympic lift, it's better to see the peak to see like what that, like your highest amount of power you can generate is. But in terms of, squat, bench, deadlift, we want to see like the whole range of motion. We're not just curious about like one snapshot in time.
Yeah. Some of the systems are actually only going to measure your peak if you put in pretty much any of the Olympic lifts, if I remember.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Output did that, where you could only see the peak portion of it.
So we've gone through several different apparatus, correct? What have we used so far?
So we
And then what made us change? What made us
different systems.
yeah? So what have we used, and what are we starting to use more of? Because of ease, we've gone from what's called output. Actually, I'm sorry, bar sensei. Oh my goodness. Like you couldn't even put the bar sensei on the belt squat because there was too much vibration, too much noise, and you wouldn't hear anything. It was terrible. It wouldn't give you any speed or anything. But that was what, 7, 8 years ago that started. And then we've moved to output,
had its own problems.
which had its own problems. Again, Bluetooth, beautiful thing.
Doesn't like chains.
Doesn't like chains. It doesn't like noise. So sometimes that would throw off our speed. So we've had to come up with other means. What else do we have? Do we have anything? I tried the flex. We tried the flex, which is a bar, is a clip, a knob at the end of the bar. And then it has to see, you have to put a mat underneath so that it's like a reflector. Sorry, not a mat, it's a reflector. So it can see the speeds. And truly, the one thing I do like about it is the bar path. You can check bar path a lot. You can tell if somebody's forward, if there's somebody's back, lateral, right, left. That is the biggest part that I liked about the flex. Just a lot to set up. It does give volume per set of lift, but other than that, it is just like every other app. And then, do you guys want to talk about over? What do you guys think about over? What's different about over compared to the other Bluetooth strain gauges that we've used?
Well, over, it's a tethered strength that you put the Velcro around the bar. And that will, since we don't have so many like different types of clients that are coming in and out of here, the ones that don't use it regularly, or if they're just a younger kid in general, when we've had them in the past try and set up a Bluetooth to an iPad that we give them, it's not always connecting, or they forget how, or, just a bunch of problems can come up. So now we just have the box. It connects to metal, so it can connect right to the bottom of the rig, and you just flip it on, make sure that it's either measuring in peak or mean, whatever we're trying to measure that day. And, the athlete can see the speed. But what's nice about it is you can connect that to an iPad still through Bluetooth, and it can show you all the data that over would show you. And you can set your velocity goals, and the screen will flash like green or red if you're in the zone or out of it. Or if you're setting like a velocity loss, you can set that and it'll flash red to tell you, oh, all right, time to stop set. So ultimately, it's just definitely been more efficient, and we're able to use like band chains, put it on the belt squat, different types of bars, easier, and it will have less like faulty data.
Yeah. And I've found the tether to be a lot more consistent than the Bluetooth with output.
Well, a gold standard is still the GymAware that is tethered, right? That is still the gold standard. That is just a basic cylinder that has a line just like this, and that is still our gold standard. So we measure everything against that. That is the company that makes this. I did like this at the very beginning. Again, I only like the one thing in the app. It does its job. Don't get me wrong. It is just, I need ease. I need speed, because I can't be fiddling around with things. Even in my own workout, time is of very much importance to me as everybody else. I don't want to be effing around with this. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that anymore. I wouldn't suggest this, to be honest with you. If you like to know bar path and stuff and want to know volume and let it do it, phenomenal. But not a big fan of this just because of how it has to be utilized and used. This has been just such an ease.
We need to be able to rapidly switch from one athlete to the next. We pick it up, move it to another rack, whatever we need to do. And they're just putting their numbers right in where they need to be.
Right. I mean, this has to go to a bar, right? The only other thing it can go to is a dumbbell that is an Olympic plate, right? And it attaches on the end. This, I can attach to my wrist. I'm not going to do it now, also go flying, but I can attach that to my wrist, and I can do shoulder flexion. I can do a shoulder press, a dumbbell, a band, a chain, anything just in the hand, and I could still get that speed. The other day we were doing for a diagonal pattern for a pitcher to be able to move out at 1.0 meters per second. I got tired pretty quick, so I know how much he's going to be able to do when he's back to his throwing program. And again, all that has to do with, we try to gauge the amount of forces that they're going to be using as far as speeds, dependent on the exercises that they do, to prepare some sort of body part to be able to handle the forces that they're putting on them, So in other words, if you have an elbow pain, we are not just going to be working the elbow bicep flexion extension. You got to get that whole shoulder ready, but the whole shoulder has to be ready to throw 35 meters per second. That's how we're going to get that through there. I can't just tell you to lift more weight and throw that up faster. That's just counterintuitive, and that's just not the way that the body and the joint mechanics work.
Going back with that too, I definitely find that it changes intent.
That's
So
the point.
it's like
The Strava.
easier to get somebody to have intent when it's a heavy weight and you have to do everything you can to get it up. But if we need somebody to move at max effort at 30%, that drives it. That makes them actually push to get the number higher and higher, compared to we hand them a light weight, just too easy. And we can stand there, come on, push, move it faster, move it faster. It's completely different when you can put a number to it and give them something to actually chase.
Who was the athlete that, I think it was deadlifts, and they had done 3 sets of a certain weight, and they're like, all right, I'm done. And then I think you were telling me that, I forget who it was.
Yeah, it was one of the college soccer players that we worked with a couple summers ago. And I don't remember what speed we were specifically working at, but she did probably 6 or 8 reps. And at that weight, she told me that was as many reps as she could do, that she was fatigued. So I was like, all right, we're going to hook this up to the bar. You're going to do as many reps as you can until this speed drops below a certain amount. And it was the same speed that we were working on. She told me 1 set prior. So some fatigue had already built, and she went, she hit her 6, she hit her 8, and then she continued and got up to 28 when she told me that she could only get to 6.
Interesting. And then was she able to do more sets after that?
Yeah, she was.
Oh,
Yes, she was.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Athletes, they're tricky. They'll fool you, man. So you can't fool data. You can't just say, oh, I'm tired. Well, your data didn't show it. Like you didn't have a drop. So, even though they don't want to work as hard, they gotta, let's suck it up. I think we gotta start wrapping it up. I think we got it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Oh, we do. We have plenty more. I could keep going, but no one wants to hear me.
Next week?
Next week, yeah. Next week, I don't know. Why don't you guys give us ideas? I mean, we have, but give us ideas of stuff you want to learn about and what you want to see, because this stuff is really intriguing to us. We, as Darnell and I say, we nerd out on this, right? We know you can care less, but if you want to learn about it, or if you want to know how can that help you as a lacrosse player, as a midi lacrosse player, or as a left fielder for softball, or name it. We can help you out because there's benchmarks for each sport that correlate to certain speeds, certain powers, certain amount of forces, certain shears. All those all come around to this and our testing with Volt. I'm going to say happy training.